Hello everyone, and welcome to the fourth Technology Transfer webinar. Today's topic is on crowdsourcing innovation. Before we kick off with today's presentation, I would like to give the floor to Luca Escoffier, a project manager of the U-Japan Technology Transfer Helpdesk. Over to you, Luca.
Thank you for being with us today. We are kind of divided between Tokyo and Brussels, and Eva is in Brussels, and here in Tokyo. Many of you already had the chance to take a look at the website of the Helpdesk. You have it here on this slide. I really invite you to take a look. There are some useful materials, websites, presentations, videos, and from next week, hopefully also some podcasts from experts in technology transfer. And of course, you can search for available technologies and patent documents. Maybe we will also dedicate a separate video just for that, with a tutorial on how to make a search. Last but not least, the last line regards a survey on SMEs that we are still running, continuously running. So if you have time, I would really appreciate if you can take a look and spend 3 minutes of your time to fill it out. Without further ado, I would love to introduce you to the speaker of today, Adriano Lavopa. Adriano is, of course, an expert in technology transfer. That's why he's with us today. He has spent several years working in supporting companies on innovation strategies for the adoption of new technologies, the development of new businesses, and the creation of new opportunities. As I said, as an expert veteran in tech transfer, innovation management, and as well as in open innovation. He has worked in many different companies since the beginning of his career, with many different roles, and now is definitely an expert in methodologies for using the outside world for accelerating businesses, and that is why today he's talking with us and about the power of the crowds. So without further ado, I would leave the floor to Adriano.
Hi. Welcome everyone, and good morning and good afternoon for whom is calling from the Far East. Luca just gave me and what I'm going to talk you about this morning is how to crowdsource innovation. So these are basically the topics that I want to cover today. So we're going to go through a quick intro on crowdsourcing. So which type of communities you can address, what are the benefits for the companies, for basically any organization. So how to prepare for a crowdsourcing campaign, and of course, last but not least, because it's a good thing, it has also risks and drawbacks. And then just a final slide to recap and to give you some recommendations. First, quick intro on crowdsourcing. So the origins of crowdsourcing are, let's say, dated back in 2006 when this gentleman Jeff O was let's say publishing a paper on an article on the Wired magazine, which was called The Rise of Crowdsourcing. And basically, let's say a good definition that he gives in that specific article is that the crowdsourcing basically is something that you traditionally do inside a company. So giving a task to a person, which is typically an employee, and outsource that specific task. So outsourcing to an undefined and a very general and large group of people. So basically the crowd. And there is also another interesting definition that he gives on his blog that I also recommend to watch and to read. That is So you know that open source is typically a principle of the software environment. Basically, he says that the open source applied to environments out of the software environment could be called crowdsourcing. These are just a couple of definitions, but there are a lot of let's say overlaps with the open innovation, which is today the trend, and this is the buzz paradigm. And basically, there are two definitions that I want to let's say bring to your attention, and one is the one of Chesbrough, which is the inventor and of the creator of the open innovation paradigm, and one from Frank Piller, which is a professor in the University of Aachen. And basically, what Chesbrough says is that open innovation is a combination of internal and external ideas to create a better architecture and a better system, a better structure of your own company and of your own business model. Something very interesting is also the definition of Frank Piller, where he says that is basically the leveraging of discoveries from unobvious others. So from any unobvious source, because the most of the time that you go outside of your company, you go to suppliers, you go to research centers, and these are pretty obvious sources of innovation. But then basically what happens is that you have to be able to reach those unobvious sources. And last, but I guess the most important and the most challenging for any company and any organization is the definition attributed to Bill Joy, who is one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems. And basically he says, no matter who you are, most of the smartest people work for someone else. So keep this in mind when you want to really go outside of your company and you really want to innovate from any unobvious sources. So crowdsourcing. This is a picture that I took from a book that we published also together with Luca on open innovation for SMEs. Basically, this is a picture that recaps quite well what crowdsourcing is and what open innovation is in general. So crowdsourcing basically means going outside and going out of your company and leverage the outside crowds, the outside world. And it can be done via contest, co-developing, co-creating, and ideating with the external sources, as well as through challenges. So where you can basically ideate, which means you can also source solutions to your problems, solutions to your R&D problems, solutions to any issue that you might have internally. So this is in a nutshell what crowdsourcing is. So basically, again, sourcing from the crowds. But in the open innovation umbrella, there is also scouting, which is playing, let's say, a big part of let's say, every activity involving innovation. And of course, it's basically a technology provision, because the most of the time that a company goes outside is really scouting for a new company or for new expertise or for a new technology. So this, in a nutshell, is what how crowdsourcing sits in under the umbrella of the open innovation. So it's a set of methodologies, and it's a set of definitions and approaches to the outside world. Of course, the approach could be, let's say, in a very general terms, could be top-down and bottom-up. And top-down is very clear. So it's starting from the top. So the company is really driving the show. And the company is setting a specific strategy with a specific theme and with a specific challenge. And then decides where to source this type of opportunities, and the company can also decide on which type of crowds to assess. and also select some specific communities. That could be working with students, could be working with Mrs. Smiths, working with consumers, or working with experts. The same is valid. I wish to share an example of the top-down approach. So basically, this is an example from Innoventially, a company in which I'm partner. And basically, in this example, there was a company which created a specific technology. So, which was a new application for membrane technologies. But basically, they were just looking into their own sectors, very vertical, very clear on the application, and they asked the crowd to provide ideas on how to apply that specific technology to other fields, to other industry sectors. So this is a typical approach, a typical top-down approach. So the company is really setting the strategy, is really addressing the specific communities, and of course the communities here were mainly technical people. But of course, there is also the bottom-up approach, where, for instance, the company just sets some specific basic guidelines, and basically sits there waiting for the crowd to propose ideas, to propose solutions, etc. That afterward they are going to review. And also here there are a couple of nice examples. So one is Barilla, which is an Italian food company, and basically they have created a portal here, for instance, where they are asking their consumers to propose ideas, and they are asking to consumers also to vote that specific ideas. So basically the company sets the strategy because it is referring to a specific brand, which is Mulino Bianco, which is a brand making biscuits, snacks, etc. And basically here the company, the consumers are providing ideas that afterward the company is taking into account once they have reached a certain level of interest across the consumers community with the voting feature. As well, something very, very interesting also, because this is, let's say, addressing a specific specific buzz, which is the grand challenges. So especially big companies or big organizations or institutions are mainly looking into solving very big challenges. And this is what, for instance, General Electric was doing with their Eco-Imagination challenge, because basically they were asking to external people, and you can see here some numbers like here, where they say there are about 2,000 ideas for a number of 38,000 plus people, for a total of 41,000 plus comments, and of course also the voting. So here, for instance, they are asking ideas from externals on how to really create new possible eco-friendly and sustainable renewable energies or clean tech. So any type of or energy efficiency. So any type of idea that could really go into that direction. And they are asking outside of their company. And also this is an example on how the bottom-up approach might work for companies. So theory is quite boring, so a little bit of humor. So you can see here a principal which is blaming a student to cheat, and is saying it's not cheating, it's simple crowdsourcing. Then let's go into the communities. So the communities, they are very different in their kinds, and basically this is also another picture I took from our book. And this is how, for instance, myself, how I interpret this type of community. So definitely the person that you want to have in your own environment and really co-creating with you and from where you want to source is the doer, which is basically consisting of some professionals or some individuals or some teams of individuals. And the doer is the person that you want to have there, because he is very capable. He likes to be challenged, and he is also providing very interesting ideas. Together, along to the doers, there is also another community that you want to create, and this could be more a stable community because it's based on key opinion leaders and is based on those type of professionals that are usually providing you opinions and are usually providing you advices when you want to, for instance, when you want to go or when you want to ideate a new product, etc. So basically, they are experts. Think about a medical company which could maybe address some questions, or might think to co-create with some physicians or some doctors. And they could be indeed the turnkey to your business, because they have also a very solid technical background. And very important, when you want to really tap into this type of community, you really have to create a good relationship, which is based on trust. Then there is the advisor, which is basically a person which is there to listen, and it's good to listen because he could really provide some advices. He's not really a doer in the sense that he doesn't develop a specific idea, but he just gives advices, or he just helps or supports the doers, for instance, in developing further an idea. But it has good potentials. So if you are really able also to engage or to trigger the interest of an advisor, it could really turn into a doer. So a potential is there. So also consider to tap into this specific community. And last is the tourist. So the tourist is a tourist. So he's just passing by. He's just curious. He's just looking at what is shared on the platform, or what other community, what other individuals have proposed. But he also has some potential, because he also can be, let's say, triggered, or can be, let's say, what you can call a follow-upper. So a person that would like to follow up later on. And he could be a novice, so a person which is really doing stuff in his garage, or he could be a simple tourist just passing by for his curiosity. Then let's really look at how to benefit from the crowds, and how to benefit from sourcing from the crowds. So here in the pictures you can see the three main constraints, according to me, of course, for a business to innovate. Overall, it is resources. So human resources, so the people of the company, the time, and the money, the finance of the company. But let me ask you some few questions that I'm going to try to reply later on, after providing some insights on how the benefit can work for you. So consider for a moment the possibility of extending your people. So think about how will your R&D department look like. Consider also the possibility to get a solution cheaper. So how your product will look like. And also consider the possibility to get such solutions faster. So how will your business be impacted? So basically, the use of crowdsourcing is creating a much bigger opportunity. It's creating much bigger sources of ideas, much bigger sources of solutions. It's creating new capabilities. You can also source some expertise. So in general, you can really source and improve the opportunities that will be interesting for your business. So an example here. So this is actually a medium-large company which is active in the childcare products, and in the past they have done a couple of contests. So it was part of a research project. You can see there the references of the project. And basically, what happened was that they have run an internal contest and an external as well. So the internal contest provided them 51 new ideas for new products. The external one was providing them about 70 ideas. And as you can see, the price was not that much. The price was just 500 euros plus a set of products from the company. So very, very low price, but they had a huge participation of consumers of these products. And what turned out was, and that is very interesting for you as well, is that their customers had very good ideas because they scored much higher in the novelty and in matching the real customers' need. And but they, of course, they scored lower in feasibility. Because, of course, they were not technical people, they didn't know the company, but anyway, they gave very good ideas that, for instance, could be, let's say, processed and assessed internally and then further developed. This is just to give you an idea on how many opportunities you can source from entering into a crowdsourcing campaign. So, well, actually, these are some of the benefits of sourcing from the crowds, and you can be first time right. So, for sure, if some of you is working in a company, you know how be the first time right is important, because you can save time. You can save time for asking by asking an expert, which could really tell you you're going in the right direction or you're going not in the right direction, because maybe you are, let's say, invalidating your brand communication. But you can source also a solution in a very few months. As you can see there, the campaign of MOM was just a few months, and they sourced 70 ideas. Well, actually, 120 in total. So this is an example. It's quite similar to what we have seen, what we have driven in Innoventure. This was also a company which is expert in packaging technologies, and basically what they did, they patented a solution for labeling a package, but they did not know how to use the patent. And the idea for them was to crowdsource ideas from the outside world. So to try to find a way to use that specific technology for that specific machine, for that specific sector, into other sectors, into other machines. So this is also an interesting example on how you maybe don't have the capabilities inside because your people are very biased by the day-to-day work they do, and you ask outside, and you can really get very insightful ideas. Another benefit, you basically can optimize the costs and the time by sourcing ideas outside, because if you tap into doers, they are really going to develop the idea they want to propose to you, because they are really keen to have that idea in your portfolio. And a nice example here is, for instance, the Lego platform. So Lego, what did was to create a platform where their fans and their consumers can propose their ideas on new products. And What was good and is very interesting to stress here is that in this platform they can propose those type of products. Other fans and other customers can vote, and they can also identify a price that the customers are willing to pay for that specific product. So you can imagine how this can really squeeze the product development timeline. And what they told me is in the past is that in the past a product development was taking something like 18 months, 20 months to be developed. Also, well, it's a very simple product. It's made of bricks. But now they are able to squeeze 6 to 8 months because they get the idea ready. They know how to sell it. They know at which price to sell it. They know at least that they have 10,000 plus people that are going to buy that product, and the reward to the person is a percentage on the sales of that product. So there is also an engagement, a kind of monetary engagement of people, of consumers, to really propose ideas. And these are the type of doers I was talking about. This is the community that I was talking about before. So let's try to reply to questions. So how will your R&D department will look like? How will your new product will look like, and also how your business will be impacted? So the benefits of crowdsourcing, of course, is you're going to extend your expertise and even gain more, because working with external experts, you can, let's say, leverage on their capabilities, and you can bring their capabilities inside the company. Or you can also, let's say, train on the field the people, your own people. You can really source such ideas from other bright minds, and you can have qualitative and quantitative outcomes from the crowdsourcing campaign. So you can have quality as well as quantity, and you can be able to tap into specific communities. So if you want to really create a product for your consumers or for your clients, you engage with them. And there is let's say, an extract of a very interesting article that I suggest you to read. It is from Procter and Gamble, and basically the interesting part was that in their mindset, when they created the Connect and Develop platform, they were saying if for every researcher there will be about 200 other researchers that could, let's say, co-create with this one, we're going to extend our R&D capability to 1.5 million researchers. So think about it, and think about this let's say, multiplying factor, and think on how you really can extend your R&D department. Then basically, when you crowdsource, well, a crowdsourcing campaign could easily cost less than 30-40 k euro, and you can easily make your calculations. So if you develop internally, how much resources you have, financial resources you have to invest. So think about spending 30-40 k and getting that many other solutions, many other ideas that you can maybe follow up and easily co-create. So you can easily get a solution for that price. Just one thing, of course, be careful, because sometimes cheap means cheaper, but cheaper than your R&D spend. And in this case, sometimes very cheap. So if you're going to run a campaign for just 5,000 euros, be aware that it could maybe not be a synonymous of quality. So be also careful, because it has to be clear which type of community, for instance, because maybe for 5,000 k you are not going to get even the trigger of the interest of for instance, a research community or a professional community. Maybe you can work with students, for instance. Then here in the crowdsourcing is really valid the saying unity makes strengths. And every time that you want to crowdsource, you have to really be able to abandon, really put aside the do-it-yourself mentality. What is called in the literature around open innovation the not invented here syndrome. So think out of the box, use your external resources, and here I quote again Bill Joy, because the smartest people are working for someone else, not for your company. Then last, how to get faster. So you can easily reduce the time to market. Being the first time right, you can really reduce the time you spend in introducing a new product. You can dramatically reduce the development time, as we have seen from the Lego example. You can improve the brainstorming power of your company because you have more brains to source from, and this could be done at a faster pace, not having many sessions of brainstorming. You can challenge your own people as well. For instance, in the case of MOM, the internal ideas, the internal people that submitted an ideas were challenged by the ones submitted from externally, and they were really thinking, okay, now we really have to think differently. We really need to add new capabilities, and we really have to think about developing that specific product instead of this other. And of course, you can create new synergies, because think about if there is a company which is participating to your campaign, you can easily make an agreement for sourcing that idea, or for making an agreement on the patents or on the IP protection or whatever. And you can source, of course, talented contribution. Sometimes with crowdsourcing campaigns, some companies are also recruiting people, recruiting students, or recruiting graduates from the universities, just because they send a very bright idea, a very interesting idea. So, how to start a crowdsourcing campaign? Be careful. Be careful, because there are some things that you really need to address. These are things, the main things that you have to address. A clear brief, which resources you are going to allocate, a strategy. You need to have some initiative, and of course you have to be blessed from the management. So the brief must be very clear. You have to be clear on what are the criteria that you are going to use for assessing and evaluating the ideas. And you have to be able to have an external party to assess your brief. This means that maybe if you are in R&D department, you can ask to marketing, or you can ask to legal, to see if the brief is clear enough, is also, let's say, affordable to those people that are not technicians, that are not R&D experts. And of course, you have to be clear also which type of communities you intend to use. So every time there is someone that is going to use a crowdsourcing campaign with eventually, for sure, for instance, we always ask them: do you want to work with students? Do you want to work with researchers? Do you want to work with any kind of professionals, or do you want to work with SMEs or other companies or startups? The resources. There must be a team, so we suggest you to have at least a team of 3 people. You need to have time. It must be clear how much time you're going to spend to assess. You need to have money, of course, and you need to have a sponsor inside. You need to have a management a top manager that is going to really believe and is going to really advocate your case. You need to have a strategy. You need to have a plan for approaching such type of communities. You need to be clear on which type of communities to approach. You need to have a clear communication strategy if you want to go just through your portal, or if you want to go through portals of trade associations, or just via social media like Facebook or LinkedIn, etc. And you need also to have very clear timelines on when to publish, when to gather ideas, when to assess them, and when to assess them, and when to reward. So there must be also clear feedback to your crowds. Then you need to have initiative, because you have to be able to challenge your limit. You have to be able to manage your risks and to accept them, because innovation is always a risk. And you have to be hazardous. So you have really to hazard. You have really to be challenging. And last, but maybe the most important, you need to have the bless from the top managers and from let's say the main stakeholders, because they have to advocate your idea. They have to advocate your campaign, and you have to be able to talk to their hearts, to their brain, and you have to be able also to tell them what is there for them, what will be the impact on that specific business, on that specific product, or on that specific business unit, for instance. But all the good things have always risks and drawbacks. And we just want to give you a couple of tips on the crowds, for instance. So every time that you want to run a crowdsourcing campaign, make educated choices. Manage your expectations, because you don't have to overestimate or underestimate the power of the crowd. Because sometimes you can be, let's say, you can expect maybe 1,000 of ideas, and maybe you didn't run the campaign carefully, and you got just 10, 20. So you can be very frustrated. So you have to be very clear also on how to organize the campaign. You do not have to underestimate, because sometimes you maybe are going to advertise to a group of engineers, and maybe you place that challenge on Facebook, and you get thousands and thousands of ideas, because it's simply interesting. And then you don't know how to manage those ideas. So to manage a couple of thousand of ideas, you might take you 1 year. So it will not be so fast as so you will not really use the benefit of being fast in getting the solution. I warmly recommend you to not start alone, but ask the help and the support of coaches or experts, of people that have done it, other companies. And I suggest you to use some tools, basically software tools, to properly manage the crowds. So don't simply create a portal where people can drop ideas, because otherwise you will be overloaded and overwhelmed by the work that is going to take you. So use tools where you can cluster the ideas, you can tag the ideas, and for instance, you can vote, etc. So use any kind of tools that can help you in really making a clear funneling of the different ideas. Another couple of tips on the use of the crowdsourcing. So there is a risk when you go outside. You basically tell the world what you're going to do, and that's why we suggest you to ask for some help, because people which are expert in doing this type of campaigns can help you in writing the brief without disclosing really what you want to do. Or maybe this type of support can also help you in being confidential. You have to be able to build trust across your communities. So you have to be credible. You have to give clear feedback. You have to be also triggering in your reward. Sometimes could be a monetary reward, sometimes could be a cooperation, sometimes could be simply having the name of the product of the person. So there are many different motivations and many different behaviors of the crowds that you can really trigger. Be aware of the cultural differences. So here we are in a bridge between Europe and Japan, and you all know that West European are very different from Japanese in the culture. So sometimes also disclosing the level of details and the level of disclosing certain ideas could be also, let's say, not really what you are expecting, because maybe that culture is different from yours. And be aware of your terms and conditions. So I really suggest you to not have not them so binding, because sometimes to have them too binding could really suggest people to not even approach you. An example on how a crowdsourcing campaign could go really, really bad. So this is an example from McDonald's. It's from 2012 when they used Ash McD stories. So the intent here was really good, because of course they were trying to get nice stories from their customers, so from the people that were really eating their McDonald's. But just read a couple of them on what happened. People really really talking about fingernails in their sandwich, or people saying I was sick after eating at McDonald's, or people saying I ate, as you can see there from Alice, she ate in 1989 and never went back. So be really careful on what you're asking to your crowds and which type of crowds you are going to interview. So I'm basically adding to the end. I just have one last slide on recommendations. So keep in mind what crowdsourcing means, and keep in mind also that the communities are structured in different ways. So we have to be able to tap into the right communities. Use those type of communities to accelerate the business, and really to find the communities that, on your opinion and on the opinion of the people that are going to help you, will really impact your business, really impact your company. Be aware that crowdsourcing is not an easy game. Could be really a double-edged knife, and you have seen the example of McDonald's. So use it carefully and ask for help, ask for support. And last but not least, it can really bring many benefits along, but could also be risky. So consider carefully if and when you want to open up to the rest of the world, because I'm not saying here that crowdsourcing is the solution, but crowdsourcing could be a solution for something that maybe you don't have in-house. So with this, I would really welcome you to the dark side of crowdsourcing. And you can contact me via email, on LinkedIn or Facebook, or simply just ask to the EU Japan Center, and they will give you my details. Yes, I see a question from Christina on IP rights. So this is what I was referring to when you're binding talking about the binding terms and conditions. So usually crowdsourcing campaigns, so when you are really sourcing for ideas, for simple ideas or solutions from individuals, for instance, what is usually happening is that this individual is given away all his IP rights because he gets a reward. There are some cases where, for instance, you can be, let's say, more appealing. In the sense, if you want really to work with companies, with other SMEs, for instance, or to find out new suppliers, or to find out very interesting startups, it could be easy that you are going to reward the winner of the challenge or the campaign with a contract. For instance, making a commercial agreement, or making an industrial development agreement, and there you can maybe think to share the IP rights, because maybe you can think about co-owning the patent, or maybe thinking about making two different patents, so one for the product specifically, and one for instance, the machine that can help produce the product, and that machine, the machine patent could be held by your supplier, for instance. So I hope I replied to your question. Okay, I see another one about crowdfunding. If it is a separate concept, a complete separate concept. No, actually not. It's not. Is anyway asking to the crowds for their contribution. So usually crowdsourcing is mainly focusing on sourcing ideas, solutions, and any kind of expertise that might be missing or you might be lacking in your company. While crowdfunding is raising the funds, raising the money to make something happening. There are many different websites today which are promoting crowdfunding campaigns. So apart the ones that are very well known, like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, there are many, for instance, quite some websites for researchers. For instance, if a researcher has an idea and doesn't have the fund because maybe his department is not has allocated already all the budget for the year, they can try to raise some funds from other departments, for instance, or from other researchers or from other universities. So crowdfunding is definitely not a separate concept. It's just, let's say, looking on the, let's say, the monetary part of the crowd. So I see also another question about the unfair competition, the problem of unfair competition in case you get an idea from your competitor's employee. Yes, there is, and for instance, in the campaigns that I have run in the past, it was clear that an employee from a company, from another company, is self-responsible or giving away a certain idea. So, and I know that in certain cases, they are also asking a kind of digital signature to say from the solver, so from the person which is participating to the challenge, that his company or his or her company knows about him participating to that specific idea. So in the past, for instance, we have run a campaign where we were asking for ideas on a specific category, and we got a guy filing his proposal, and he was from a competitor. But it was from a competitor of the company. It was not, the idea itself was not competing at all, because our competitor did not have any specific business unit, let's say, in that specific category of products. There is also a question from Anton. What if you don't have available funds to carry out the campaign? What models of reward do you suggest? Well, this is a common problem, and also big multinationals are using not to give any monetary reward. And as in, eventually we usually say give a reward because let's say it can really be more appealing. But it really depends on which type of communities you want to work with. because for instance, if you work with a university or with a group of researchers, they will not that much interested in the monetary reward. They will be very much interested in filing the IP, for instance, and that could be, let's say, your reward. Or maybe, as I said before, you can make an agreement. Or if you're going to use individuals or people that has just graduated from the school, you can offer them to be hired. So you should not always give a monetary reward. Absolutely. Is there any product or service you think cannot be crowdsourced? Well, difficult question. Actually not. I think that you really can crowdsource almost everything. Of course, there are let's say sensitive topics. Like for instance, when you want to source any kind of ideas from specific for specific sectors where a high level of security is required. But I would say in general you can source almost everything. If we think about the grand challenges, for instance, the possibility, so the grand challenges are basically those big, huge challenges, or what are also called social challenges. For instance, to solve the problem of pollution in rivers, or to solve the energy efficiency problem in buildings, or how to make old buildings very energy efficiency grade A or A++. So there are also this type of grand challenges, and usually the crowds are really willing to enter in these challenges, and are also really keen to propose their ideas. Also, if there are very big problems, and the importance is what you are going to do with this crowdsourced ideas or crowdsourced solutions, because then once that you run the crowdsourcing campaign, let's say it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the starting point, because then you have to develop that idea, you have to assess it, and you have to, let's say, make a product out of it and make it feasible, of course. So I hope I replied to your question, Luca.